Picture this. A young woman stands at the mouth of a cave, her hands stained red with ochre pigment, her hair braided with small bone beads that took her mother weeks to carve. Outside, 20 people wait. Her entire world, her entire community. In a few moments, she will belong to another family. There are no rings, no vows written on paper, no efficient reading from a script. And yet, what's about to happen is unmistakably powerfully a wedding. Welcome back, everyone. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button now, because today we're doing something most history channels never touch. We're going inside the Stone Age wedding. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at your own wedding photos the same way again. If this pulls you in like it pulled me in while researching it, drop a comment telling me what you think a Stone Age wedding looked like before you finish watching. I want to see how close you get. Here's the first thing that surprises people. Marriage is old. Older than agriculture. Older than cities. Older, quite possibly, than language as we know it fully formed. Anthropological research on hunter-gatherer. Society suggests that pair bonding and recognized partnerships existed tens of thousands of years before the first Neolithic farming village was ever built. This wasn't some rare cultural invention that popped up out of nowhere. It appears to be something close to a universal human behavior, appearing independently in nearly every isolated culture ever studied, from the Arctic to the Amazon. That alone should stop you for a second. Somehow, without internet, without shared history, without any coordination whatsoever, human groups scattered across the entire planet all arrived at roughly the same idea. Publicly recognize a bond between two people, in front of the community, and treat it as something sacred. Now let's get into what it might have actually looked like, because this is where things get vivid. Based on burial evidence, ethnographic comparisons with isolated, hunter-gatherer societies still living, traditional lifestyles today, and archaeological finds of ceremonial objects, researchers have pieced together a plausible picture. Imagine a Stone Age wedding not as a quiet legal transaction, but as a full sensory event. Fires burning late into the night, rhythmic drumming on hollow logs or stretched hides, ochre pigment, the same red mineral, used in cave art, painted onto the skin of the bride and groom, possibly symbolizing blood, life, or fertility. Some burial sites, like the famous double grave at Sunghir in Russia, dating back roughly 34,000 years, show two individuals buried together covered in thousands of painstakingly carved ivory beads, a level of ornamentation that would have taken months, possibly years of labor. Whether or not this specific burial represents a married couple is debated among archaeologists, but it tells us something undeniable. Prehistoric humans dedicated enormous time and resources to symbolically bonding two people together, even in death. And here's where it gets emotionally fascinating. A wedding in this era wasn't really about two individuals falling in love and deciding to be together, though that almost certainly happened too. It was about survival. Marriage functioned as one of the most important technologies early humans ever developed, quietly rivaling the invention of fire or the spear. Because in a world with no supermarkets, no hospitals, no police, and no safety net, a marriage between two people from different bands created something priceless. An alliance. It meant two extended families now shared resources, shared knowledge of hunting grounds, and shared protection. It meant that if your tribe faced a bad winter, you had somewhere else to turn. So when that woman stood at the cave entrance with ochre on her hands, she wasn't just starting a romance. She was, in a very real sense, weaving together the survival chances of two entire communities. And that thread, connecting love, survival, and ceremony, is exactly where we're headed next. So how do we actually know any of this? This is where the science gets genuinely fascinating, because piecing together a Stone Age wedding is like assembling a puzzle where 90% of the pieces are missing. And researchers have had to become part detective, part scientist to fill in the gaps. The first major clue comes from genetics. A landmark study analyzing ancient DNA from Upper Paleolithic burial sites, including the Sunghir remains in Russia, found something researchers didn't expect. Minimal evidence of close inbreeding across generations, even in small, isolated groups. This strongly suggests that early human communities had deliberate systems in place for finding partners outside their immediate family or band. Essentially, formalized rules about who could marry whom. This wasn't random pairing. It was structured, intentional, and almost certainly ritualized, because rules that important tend to get wrapped in ceremony, to make sure everyone remembers and respects them. The second clue comes from something called cross-cultural ethnographic comparison. Anthropologists studying modern-day hunter-gatherer societies groups like the Hadza of Tanzania or the San people of southern Africa, whose lifestyles remain closer to Paleolithic patterns than almost anyone else on Earth, consistently observe formalized bonding ceremonies. These often include public feasting, exchange of gifts between families, body decoration, and symbolic acts like sharing food from the same container. While we obviously can't assume Stone Age, humans did exactly what modern hunter-gatherers do. The sheer consistency of these patterns across unrelated cultures gives researchers strong confidence that something similar existed tens of thousands of years ago, too. Now, here's a question worth sitting with for a second. Take a guess before I tell you the answer. Why do you think nearly every human culture on Earth independently developed some form of formal marriage ceremony instead of just letting people pair off privately? Drop your theory in the comments. I'll give you the leading scientific explanation right now. The answer lies in something psychologists call public commitment signaling. A private relationship is fragile. It can be denied, forgotten, or broken without consequence. But a relationship announced in front of an entire community becomes something else entirely. A social contract with witnesses. Evolutionary psychologists argue that this public element wasn't just tradition for tradition's sake. It served a very real survival function. It reduced conflict over mates. It clarified who was responsible for raising which children. And it created accountability, because breaking a publicly witnessed bond carried social consequences that a secret relationship never would. This connects to something modern relationship researchers still study today: the witness effect in commitment. Studies on modern marriage have found that couples who have a public ceremony versus simply moving in together privately report higher relationship stability over time. Researchers believe part of this comes from accountability. When your community watches you make a promise, some deep, ancient part of your brain treats that promise as more binding. That instinct, it turns out, might be tens of thousands of years old. There's also a fascinating detail buried in some Paleolithic burial evidence. Grave goods specifically paired between two individuals, matching ornaments, mirrored positioning, shared tools, found at multiple sites across Europe and Asia. Some researchers interpret this as symbolic evidence of partnership, extending even beyond death, suggesting that early humans didn't just see marriage as a practical arrangement, but potentially as something with emotional and even spiritual permanence. And this is where the story stops being just about ancient anthropology and starts becoming deeply, uncomfortably relatable. Because that need to have your bond witnessed, celebrated, made real in front of others, never left us. It's still exactly why modern weddings involve guests, why couples still exchange rings in front of family, why "I do" is said out loud instead of just quietly decided. We didn't invent the need for ceremony, we inherited it. Here's the thought that should genuinely sit with you after everything we've covered. Every wedding you've ever attended, every proposal video you've scrolled past, every save the date card sitting on someone's fridge, all of it traces back to an instinct written into us tens of thousands of years before writing existed. The specifics have changed almost beyond recognition. The ochre became rings, the drumming became a DJ, the shared meal from one bowl became a wedding cake cut together with one knife. But strip away the surface details, and the core human need is identical. Stand in front of the people who matter to you and make your bond real by having it witnessed. Modern psychologists studying attachment and relationship science keep circling back to the same conclusion our ancestors seem to understand. Instinctively, humans are not built to bond in isolation. We are built to bond in community. A relationship that exists only in private, hidden from the people around us, tends to feel less stable, not because the love itself is weaker, but because something ancient in us associates witnessed commitment with real commitment. That's not superstition. That's tens of thousands of years of social evolution, quietly running in the background of your brain every time you watch two people say "I do." There's also a surprising modern implication buried in the survival alliance angle we covered earlier. Sociologists studying modern marriage patterns have found that strong extended family and community networks, essentially modern versions of that ancient alliance between two bands, remain one of the strongest predictors of long-term relationship success and even mental health outcomes for couples. In a world that's become increasingly individualistic, where many couples move away from family, build isolated nuclear households, and rely almost entirely on each other for emotional support, some researchers argue we may have actually lost something valuable that our Stone Age ancestors had by default: a wide built-in support network automatically woven into the marriage itself. And here's the truth that hits hardest. Our ancestors didn't have therapists, self-help books, or relationship coaches. What they had was community, dozens of witnesses, invested in making sure that bonds succeeded because their own survival depended on it too. Maybe that's the real, unglamorous secret hiding behind 34,000-year-old beads in a Russian burial site. Not romance in the way we picture it today, but something arguably more powerful. A whole community deciding together that two people's future mattered enough to celebrate, protect, and remember. So the next time you're at a wedding, maybe rolling your eyes at a long toast, or tearing up during vows, and remember you're not just watching two people commit to each other. You're witnessing one of humanity's oldest surviving rituals, one that helped our species make it through ice ages, famines, and migrations across entire continents. That drumbeat around the fire, and the DJ playlist at a modern reception aren't as different as they seem. They're doing the exact same job, making a private promise impossible to take back. If this changed how you'll look at the next wedding you attend, do 3 things right now. Hit that subscribe button so you catch every deep dive we drop. Comment below with the one detail from this video that surprised you most. And give this video a like so more people can discover the real story behind human connection. This channel only keeps growing because of viewers like you, who actually care about where our traditions came from. And since we just uncovered how ancient humans bonded for life, next time, we're flipping the story completely and diving into something darker. What happened when Stone Age relationships fell apart? Did prehistoric humans have anything resembling divorce? And how did early communities handle broken bonds? Trust me, it's not what you'd expect. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Until then, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.